It's been exactly 1 year since the Itaewon incident that most people heard about, and a new documentary on Paramount called Crush. And this documentary really dove deep into the details of what happened and re-evaluated if someone like the government is at fault or not, which is still an ongoing topic in a trial case. In this docu, the survivors came forward to give their story of what it felt like at that moment and what exactly happened minute by minute. And I've never made a video on the Itaewon case. I think a year later, it is finally time to talk about it. And the details are very important to retouch because it's not unique to what happened here. This could happen anywhere that you go in any country because large crowds do happen. Events, protests, festivals. I mean, this could happen anywhere. And how can you protect yourself? What happened to the case 1 year later? Was anybody arrested? Or should anybody be held reliable? And of course, a year later in Halloween of 2023, this year, this is kind of what Halloween looked like in Itaewon. Obviously, a huge mass difference where not a lot of people apparently came and celebrated Halloween here. Or will there ever be Halloween celebration in Itaewon again? It seems like a lot of people have moved on to different towns, different hot young people spot like Hongdae, Gangnam areas. So people were dressed up there, and it was estimated that about 90,000 people showed up in Hongdae on Halloween weekend. Now Hongdae and Gangnam area, it's a lot larger. There was no mini alleyways. I've watched the entire documentary to condense it in this video if there was any new information. So a like in this video, thumbs up, subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and engaging in the comments all help because algorithm has been hitting me in this channel really hard. I don't know why. I love making these videos and sharing these important information with you guys. So I want to continue this channel. So even a donation of super thanks also really helps as well. So this all started in October 29th of 2022. It was a Saturday Halloween weekend. And Itaewon is known as the foreigners town. I talked about Itaewon in many of my videos. And there's a long history of foreigners settling in that town. Also having a US military base near Itaewon, which allowed the boom of these foreign restaurants, clubs friendly to foreigners, vegan food, like you could pretty much get anything you want in Itaewon. Again, there was no real costume parade or anything, but because Itaewon is a foreigners town, it's like everybody just knows to go to Itaewon to dress up whatever you want. Nobody's gonna judge because it's Itaewon. And I've been to Itaewon in Halloween a couple years back. There's a photo of me if I can find it. This was taken in Itaewon. And I remember this was the first and last time I said I was gonna go to Itaewon for Halloween because I remember I was on the other side of the main district going like this between crowds. And I also remember it being pretty scary, but after a couple minutes of moving, a little breath and like gaps open up. So it wasn't expected that something could ever happen. But still every year, apparently it gets this crowded. Now the only difference was in 2022, it was the first time when all restrictions lifted. After 2 years of intense lockdown, especially in South Korea, everybody just wanted to have a fun and good time. Now starting way back from around dinner time, 5 to 6 p.m., this is when people already started to gather in Itaewon. You could see from the subway, there was a crazy amount of people, apparently taking about 3 times longer just to get out of the subway compared to normal. This is a lot of people. And I remember again, a couple years back when I went, it was just as crazy like this. Now this is the Hamilton Hotel. This is a very famous, pretty much old hotel that's been there for a while now. And it's right next to the famous Itaewon subway exit number 1. When you say you're gonna meet up with somebody in Itaewon, exit number 1, Hamilton Hotel, everybody knows where this is. Now right as you exit, the first right is the alleyway up to the main Itaewon strip where all the famous club, bars, and restaurants are. Now why that alley, right? Again, it's the first right turn. I think like it's the easiest to get to. And I know of somebody very close to me that used to own a lot of clubs, restaurants in Itaewon in that main strip. And it is said to be like the highest, most expensive rent in Itaewon because it's the main street. Crazy thing is the first help call to the call center was at 6:34 p.m. So way earlier than the actual incident that happened. I mean, we're talking about like 4 hours before. In the call, a woman reports that there's so many people in all directions, especially in that Hamilton Hotel alleyway, that it is so dangerous and they need police to help and control the crowd right away. And obviously, apparently, not enough police showed up, or nobody actually showed up to control the crowd, because if they did, this definitely would have been prevented hours before. Now, to the right of the photo, it is just a wall, a brick wall. And to the left is where a couple bars, clubs, and even like a shoe store is located. And I remember about a month after this incident, I actually went to Itaewon to attend the memorial. I was shocked at how small this alleyway was. Like, I didn't even remember how small it was, because apparently it is only 10 feet wide. Myself and my friend was standing in the alleyway, and we were already like close to each other. That's how actually narrow this alleyway is. Now, people did notice earlier on that like it was getting pretty uncomfortable to even breathe and try to move, but a lot of people are drunk. A lot of people are just like so excited that it's Halloween. You're seeing different costumes. There's loud music literally everywhere. So a lot of people just kind of shook it off as, oh, this is Itaewon. This is Halloween every single year. This is what usually happens. This is normal for Itaewon. And that's what majority of the people thought. And it is estimated about 100,000 people showed up to this little part of Itaewon. One man says that he even arrived at Itaewon at 9:50 p.m. with his mom and his sister, heading to the main street of the bars and the clubs. So people were still arriving and trying to like get through even that late at night when the crush just started to happen. So you could tell that like there were so many people, and it was so rowdy and crazy that people didn't know this was happening. Now, we don't know exactly how this wave started, but according to some witnesses, they saw like a couple young men starting to push, obviously to try and like get some room for themselves and to get the crowd to moving, but that could have been the start of this huge crowd wave. And the dangerous part is that because there was no control, everybody was trying to go into different directions all at the same time in different ways. So it's not like straight here and straight this way. Like, people were just jumbled up trying to go anywhere. One guy even started to climb the walls, as he probably felt like this was really dangerous and nobody can breathe. People claiming that their feet wasn't even touching the floor. They were literally lifted up from the air. That's how tight people were squeezed and literally hovering above the floor. So imagine getting the wave of people while you're hovering up the floor. Like, you have a great chance of not having any stable balance and just falling down. According to the witnesses, it's around 10:08 p.m. to 10:10 p.m. when one of the waves literally hit the alleyway slope, and people just started to fall on top of each other. Now, people were literally crushed on top of each other, especially the ones down at the alleyway right as you turn to the exit to the right. And an off-duty US officer says that he saw people literally pass out in front of him. Literally people with blue lips, unconscious, still standing up because they were still crushed between people. And one witness even says that it looked like at one point at the bottom, the amount of people that was on top of each other was around 15 feet. And like I told you, there was a bar and a club on the left side, and people there on the patio were trying to literally pull people. And one of them was an off-duty US military officer. So this is a big, strong guy trying to pull people, and he says that he physically couldn't. The survivors of the main alley state that the only thing that they could think of was to just stay awake and breathe, because if they do go unconscious or close their eyes, they knew that they were going to just get crushed. Not only in the front, but people in the back. A lot of them says that they started to lose sensation in their legs, their bodies. People started vomiting. You would be holding onto your friend's hands and then you would lose them the next second. Survivors describe it as being stuck underwater and like being under a big wave in the ocean. Now, the controversial part is the firefighters, not the police, received this first request at 10:44 p.m., which is a long time, and up to 11 calls were made through 112, the emergency call center, from 6 to 10 p.m. Now, one thing we do have to really touch up is that I've been here when it was not Halloween, and even on the weekends when it used to be so busy, it's literally one strip of main road where cars are going up or down. And when it's the weekend, it literally takes like 20-30 minutes to just go from point A to B, which would usually take like 1 minute if there were no cars. So think about Halloween when there was 100,000 people on the streets, and on top of that, taxis, buses, cars trying to get through. I mean, I'm sure even firefighters and police cars that wanted to get there, it probably took them a very long time to try and get to that strip. Now, by this time, even before 11 p.m. hit, there was help and rescue team there, but it just wasn't enough. So even civilians came out trying to help, but like they were stuck there for I don't know how long, because it was said that around 11:50 p.m., almost not reaching 2 hours, now you had more firefighters, ambulance, and police there to try and help this disaster. All meanwhile, there were drunk people still dancing, singing, clubs and bars literally blasting music everywhere. I mean, people are dressed up, and I think it's Halloween, you have flashing lights, again, you're drunk. I think most people didn't know the extent of what was happening at the time. And remember, people who were pulled into the clubs and bars to try and get help, there were people who were passed out inside of the clubs and bars trying to do CPR. There were many rumors that happened after this day, you know, rumors that people were on, you know, illegal substances, rumors that there were like group of men who first started the start of waves trying to push people. You know, at this point, I think everybody was trying to push everybody. Apparently, many people didn't even have cellular data because actually the phone reception went out because there were just so many people there. Now, those who did survive and went to the emergency room say that they couldn't move their body and it felt like they were just paralyzed. And some people couldn't even go to the hospital. That's how crazy it was. Like, some people literally had to walk and return to their hotel or their home because there was just like no way to even get help. At the end, total of 159 people lost their lives, many in their 20s and 30s, but of course not limited to the age because all different ages, older, younger, passed. But a lot more female ratio, 102 females who passed and 55 males and 27 foreigners. And they say that a lot of females who have a smaller body frame and less strength compared to males, that could have contributed to obviously 2 times the more females passing away. Victims who lost their sister, victims who lost their fiance that was supposed to get married in just a couple months, foreigners who came there for the first time who just wanted to have a fun time who lost their best friends. And it took time to identify a lot of the victims because they were in Halloween costumes and they lost their phones and wallets. There was no identification. And there was also a section of lost items where people of loved ones can come and pick up the belongings. After the incident, there was a large memorial for those who passed away, even with the president coming to show his condolences. Korea is really great with crowd controls. Obviously, there's protests, big events, festivals happening all the time, so how could this happen? The biggest outrage came from those who were supposed to be in charge of the main police line, the rescue centers, the main firefighter center, the mayor and the government all came forward, and one of the Minister Lee, publicly stated that there wouldn't have been anything that they could have done, even if the firefighters would have came early. I mean, this statement just got a lot of people angry. To say that if firefighters came way earlier, it wouldn't have prevented anything. And through a thorough investigation, they did find that the police did write a report a few days prior to Halloween that they estimated around 100,000 people to gather in Itaewon and that accidents might happen. But interesting enough, no real measures were ever taken. Apparently, like BTS concert where they stationed 1,500 policemen. Even big protests, technically it's not an official event, dispatched like over 1,000 policemen there. So why not for a big crowd control if you did predict that? But mysteriously, 3 days after the Halloween incident, this report of them estimating the 100,000 people was deleted. So the police, a different division, started to launch an investigation to see who could have been responsible and who deleted these important reports. And even 2 people in the police department who was being investigated into in relation to the Halloween incident ended up unaliving due to so much pressure. Eventually, I believe the mayor and minister of different departments, including public safety, including the people who were in charge of the 112 emergency calls, I believe still to this day, 6 people were officially charged and are still set to go to trial if they did have anything to do with the cause of the Halloween incidents. But this also came with a lot of controversy because people are saying that, well, did this mayor, did this person in the emergency center cause the Halloween incident? It wasn't their fault that happened, but a lot of the loved ones are blaming them, saying that you killed my son, you killed my child. As the official Halloween incident did conclude that this was an unfortunate accident caused by too many people and no crowd control. So what will be the fate of these 6 people that are charged? We're still waiting on the answers. And one of the biggest argument also people have is that they believe that, the older generations who are pretty much running the presidency, the government, they believe that they concluded this as an accident and and blaming the younger generation. You know, people who go to Itaewon on that night are people who don't study, who don't work, who don't have a life. They went out to drunk and get party, and they ended up causing this accident on themselves. Like, why should I be responsible? Why should we use our tax money to help these victims, the victims' families, the funerals, the mental health department? Like, why should we be using our taxes? And that is still like an ongoing conversation. You know, my little 2 cents, my little opinion is that, I mean, still at the end of the day, everybody is part of this world, right? It's not like people went out just stupidly to get drunk and die. And even a year later, there's still people fighting for the truth to see why help did not come earlier when they first got the 6:34 p.m. call, and why there was not enough people except 137 policemen dispatched on this day for 100,000 people. 1 year later, since the Halloween incident, there has been a memorial, and family of the loved ones came to give their love letters. And again, this year, a lot of these Halloween spirits have moved to different parts of town, like Hongdae or Gangnam, and a lot of policemen were dispatched, and they did put barricades in different towns. And thank God there was no accidents reported this year. I'm sure you do not want this to happen the second time. There's also a lot of survival tips if you do happen to be in a large crowd on how to survive. I am not the expert, so I'll leave the link down below if you want to see the videos. There has been multiple videos that's been released, which is so important to know, such as putting your arm up like this to protect your lungs, certain type of positions you should be standing in case a wave happens, which is one of the most dangerous things to go through in a large crowd. While Itaewon returned to what it used to be, only time will tell. I hope you guys learned something from today's video. Hit the like button and subscribe, and share this video to share this information with your friends. Thank you so much for watching, and see you on my next video.